Welcome to All Eyes on Cleveland. My name is Brad Ward. This is salary cap free agency week at All Eyes on Cleveland. We're going to take you through everything that you need to know about 2021 free agency for the Cleveland Browns in the NFL. Lots of speculation around this salary cap because it is a lower salary cap. Lots of questions about what's going to happen with that. We have a great guest tonight. Michael Ginnitti is going to join us here momentarily, founder and managing editor of Spotrac. And he takes us through some very interesting stuff. We've got a lot of great questions for him about the salary cap, the implications it will have on the Browns, on free agency. We'll get some answers about extensions with the Browns players, so on and so forth. The NFL also today making it seem very likely that they will add a 17th game to the regular season. I will talk about that after the interview a little bit, about how that's going to work. Also, some other rumors surrounding Wild Card Weekend. We'll hit on that as well. But without any further ado, let's get to the interview tonight. His name is Michael Ginnitti, founder and managing editor at Spotrac. All of your free agency and salary cap questions answered right here on All Eyes on Cleveland. Mikey, you have him. Let's bring him up and get it going. We are absolutely thrilled at All Eyes on Cleveland tonight to have on a very special guest, the one and only Mike Ginnitti, founder and managing editor of Spotrac. Welcome to the show, Michael. How are we doing today?
Good, Brad. Thanks for having me. Appreciate your time.
I've got a million questions for you. I'll try to do this as quickly as we can. There's so much going on with salary cap. It's crazy. So at your site, at the Spotrac site, which I already mentioned to you, I'm a frequent flyer at, and many people use all the time. It's a tremendous resource. And I urge other people out there that are listening to go listen to your podcast at The Athletic, the Spotrac podcast as well, because it's tremendous also. But you guys have the cap number up there at $185 million. The floor is 180 right now from the NFL. Why that figure, and do you still think that's a fluid situation?
Very. Absolutely. Yeah. It's wishful thinking, the 185, because of what the NFL is actually allowing people to say right now, which is closer to 181 or 2 maybe. But look, there's a reason that they're pumping and publicizing these TV network deals right now, and the fact that they're close, because it's giving advertisers, front offices, players, agents, all who are working feverishly right now, with 2 weeks to go, that there could be some wiggle room here. And if $14 billion worth of TV contracts is signed on an 8-year contract, I don't know how they keep this thing $20 million, lower than we are right now at 198 in terms of a salary cap. So I'm confident that we're going to be higher than 180 to some degree. But in my opinion, it's got to be as close to 198 as possible. Every other league has made this work, and they're going to eat their losses over the next few years. None of those leagues have a $14 billion television contract ready to be signed. So the NFL seems as poised as any league to figure out a way to stay neutral right now, and I sure hope they do it.
So we came some news today that affected the Browns. J.J. Watt signs a $31 million deal over 2 years, 23 guaranteed with the Cardinals. Another Cardinal, and I'm just going to bring this up on the screen real quick here so you can see, tweeted out recently, Chase Edmonds here. This free agency is going to be wild. Going to be a lot of really good players taking 1-year rentals because that salary cap Super Bowl teams type, in my opinion, we're going to see, though, with the eyes emoji. So my question to you, I guess, is how will this directly affect free agency? And is he right? Do you expect to see a lot of 1-year rentals and guys that don't want to negotiate long-term deals this year?
Yeah, I think we've already started to see it. Look, J.J. Watt, 31, yes, that's a red flag, but, $31 million over 2 years, $23 million guaranteed. Unless there's some void years and a big signing bonus, that's going to be pretty heavy cap hits. So that's the start of a player right there who had the ability to do whatever he wanted with a dozen teams after him. He could have been on Green Bay right now on a 5-year contract to sort of finish his career with some cap friendly numbers this year. He didn't do it. I'm expecting that cap figure to be upwards of $16 million, maybe more. So this is the start of that. And teams are going to have to live with the fact that if they're going to go sign some free agents, it's going to be short-term, high impact, high guaranteed percentages. And these players are going to get themselves back to free agency either next offseason or the year after that, when the cap should balloon. If this thing does drop this year, it's going to balloon over the next 2 because the money is real. So agents know it, teams know it, players certainly know it, and it's going to be a lot of where do I want to play for fun in 2021, not so much about the dollar signs, and then give me the chance to do it again in 2022.
In your opinion, Mike, what level of player will lose out in free agency? So I doubt it's going to be the stars, right? They're probably still going to get their top level money. I don't know, though. Is it going to be the mid-level guy? Is it going to be the veteran guy that normally would get $3 or $4 million? Now he's going to take the minimum. Who loses out, you think, in this?
Everybody except for the superstars, even the rookies. I mean, the rookie wage scale is coming down. Everybody loses. Yeah. Franchise tags are down. Everything's down except for top dollar quarterback contracts, which there's no question. Dak, Baker, Lamar, Josh Allen, if they want to sign this year, it can be for market value. But everybody else, in my opinion, is going to be $1 to $2 million down. And if you're a $5 million player last year, you might be a vet min this year. You might be $1.5 million with some incentives to get it back up close to 3 or 4. Going to be a lot of creativity, a lot of incentives, a lot of bonuses, a lot of ways to keep the cap number low to start. And then, obviously wins and production can increase the cash flow. But it's going to be ugly, unfortunately, for a lot of players and quarterbacks notwithstanding.
Yeah. So with the 1-year deals or the 2-year deals, with the player options, however they want to, make it look, it's going to be a lot of that short-term stuff. Does that lend itself to some teams like really going for it right now? So like the Browns are in my opinion, it's like, okay, they're a fringe competitor team, right? And they have, in my opinion, it's 2 years till Baker's money will be on the books, right? Mm-hmm. So is this their go for it time? Should this be an opportunity they really push their chips in? And does that lend itself to NBA type collusion, buddies, getting together to get on a team? That could be a real problem, right?
It could be a real problem, if the NFL wants to do anything about it, but it could be a real problem if it works. That's what I'm worried about, right? Maybe the NFL should be most worried about because it worked in the NBA and nobody's really looked back. That's just sort of the lay of the land. And it's gotten to the point now where, guys are calling guys off of other teams and saying, find a way to get yourself traded here in the next month. That's a real thing in the NBA. So it's not so much about, will the players get caught or will the agents get caught? To me, it's about, is this process tangible in the NFL? Can Russell Wilson not only get himself out of Seattle, but bring 4 of his friends with him to a cap-friendly team this year on short-term deals and try to win 2 or 3 Super Bowls together? Obviously a little bit harder with the big rosters in the NFL and the shorter seasons, but look, the Rams are kind of leading the charge here indirectly. They're basically saying we're going to have 7 guys, the Chiefs as well to some degree. We're going to have 7 or 8 superstars. We're going to pay them max dollars. We're going to fill in the blanks, past that for our 53 to 60 man roster. And we're just going to hope that those 7 or 8 players are better than anything you can bring us on a weekly basis. And they're in the playoffs every year. The Saints do this every year. The Chiefs have done this for the past 3 years. It's a different way to build a team. I'm not sure it's a long-term successful way, but these high impact, quick decision teams have been successful. So this could be an example of half the league doing that. Let's bring in 4 guys on 1-year good guaranteed contracts. If we win, we'll worry about it later. Let's not worry about 2022. Let's try to win right now. Yeah, I think there's probably half the league there.
Mike, I wanted to bring this up, but you mentioned the Chiefs and all that there, okay? I wanted to bring this up, and this was a tweet of yours, and it was in regards to their cap situation here. Let me see if I can manage this. All right, so the Chiefs currently find themselves about $17.3 million in the negative cap space heading towards the offseason. Converting Patrick Mahomes' $21 million roster bonus into a signing bonus will free up $17.3 million of space, right? So, and the reason that works, right, is my understanding is that when you do that, take a roster bonus and switch it over to what would be a signing bonus, it gets spread out over the life of the deal, right? So, like, if it was a 5-year or a 4-year deal, that bonus doesn't have to get paid out that year; it gets spread out, right? So it frees up some immediate cap space for that year. Well, I also looked. They have Chris Jones has a $20 million roster bonus. Kelsey has a $7.5 million roster bonus. So could they just create a bunch of free cap space by doing that? And if they do, will it ever bite them down the line? It has to, right?
Sure. Yeah. Their shelf life is 4 years max, in my opinion, because of what they're about to do. This is what the Chiefs do. They keep it cash friendly the first year. Real big bonus the second year that they know they can restructure. It's already built into the contract language. Like, they know it's getting restructured. But it's also why I'm not worried about the Chiefs cap space this year. And in essence, Patrick Mahomes hasn't even signed that extension yet in terms of how the salary cap looks. He's basically still on a rookie contract. Yeah. So, you restructure his bonus, you restructure Hill, you restructure Jones, you extend Tyrann Mathieu, and they're in great shape. They're in go get somebody else kind of shape. So they're not on my list. What you mentioned biting in the butt, that's the Saints, that's the Eagles. When you do it over 10, 12 years, like those teams have done it, just continue to push it down the line. It works unless the league can't bail you out with cap. And the league can't bail them out this year. As of right now, they are in trouble because of this cap drop, because of this cap crunch. They're going to have to make some big veteran decisions to bail them out of their own process. But generally speaking, when you need to, you can find cap space anywhere you want. Yeah.
Some cap gymnastics, figure it out, right? All right, you're watching and listening to All Eyes on Cleveland here tonight with special guest Michael Ginnitti. He is the founder and managing editor over at Spotrac, and also the host of the Spotrac podcast at The Athletic. Michael, let's shift to the Browns just a little bit here. Baker Mayfield. I got 3 guys here that we're looking at extensions, and really it's more if you start to look at Wyatt Teller next year, who, graded out of this world this year all of a sudden. But let's start with the main 3 with Mayfield, Chubb, and Ward. Baker Mayfield, does it make sense to sign him to the extension this year, or does it make sense to wait? In your opinion, I guess. But what do you think about that?
It's really tough. It's really, because obviously the easy answer is you do it now because it's going to be a better value down the road. If he's here in 6 years, it's going to be an Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson type situation where, those guys are $10 to $15 million underpaid in terms of cash right now when you look at the rest of the league. So that's reason 1 to do it. Reason 2 to do it is you finally have some comfort with the guy, and you want to make him comfortable and feel secure and feel locked in. And, oh, by the way, having a quarterback on is also pretty attractive to the free agent market. Guys want to know if they're coming on a 4 to 5 year deal, that Baker's going to be here for a while. It's going to be stable. But that doesn't really matter this offseason because of everything we just talked about. It's going to be a very frantic, chaotic, short-term free agent season. So in my gut, guys like Lamar Jackson, guys like Baker Mayfield, I'm waiting a year. Josh Allen, maybe not, because I see Josh Allen more in a Patrick Mahomes type contract, 8-9 years out, where you can really spread some things out and keep it neutral this year. But I don't think that's how Baker would operate with a contract structure. And I don't think that's how Andrew Berry wants to operate the contract. I think he's a little bit more of a modern type, more of a newer structure where, we want to make this thing impactful now, get out of it when we need to, a la Jared Goff, right? There's a big difference between what Jared Goff had and Carson Wentz had, even though both were traded this offseason. It seems like the newer GMs are trending more towards impactful, front-loaded contracts that we have control of than year 4, year 5. That's the sense I get with Baker, which makes me think this is not the right time to do it. Let's wait an offseason. Let's address some of these other needs, Denzel Ward, maybe some of the defensive players, and try to lock in that side of the ball. But I think Baker's maybe a 1-year wait.
Okay. Nick Chubb, running back extensions are dangerous. There's a million horror stories around them. But I think and with the analytics front office, you would think they would kind of be weary of the running back, extension here. But he's a special guy. Nick Chubb is a really special guy. Not just a special back, but a special guy as well. I think they want to keep him around. And the running back market came back down to earth a little bit last year, right? So you think they sign him to an extension?
Boy, this is maybe the most fascinating part of the Browns right now, because look, there's so many questions about, do you sign one running back? And the Browns are now asking, do we sign two? It seems like an impossible task, but they do have value in Kareem Hunt's contract. There's no question about it. So, which gives them leverage to do as they please with Nick Chubb. Unfortunately speaking, I like the kid, and I think he's a great player, especially from a fantasy perspective. But I do think they're going to let it expire. And I think they'll probably make him play on a franchise tag, or at least get to a franchise tag, a la Derrick Henry. I see Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry in very similar circles, where they both kind of stay away from the passing game a little bit more than is necessary for a big time payday. So it seems like Cleveland has enough leverage with Hunt's contract and with his lack of versatility, so to say, we're going to let the contract expire. We've got other mouths to feed. There's probably a franchise tag in your future if you want it. Otherwise, we'll work it out later. But I don't think there's a necessity to get that done right now either.
Okay. And then lastly, Denzel Ward. You mentioned you might want to do it this year for him. Is that what you said? You thought maybe Ward would be the time to do that extension now? Or would you kick the can on that too?
I think Denzel Ward has shown enough. And boy, it'd be nice to lock him in and have him be a long-term asset after this Carson Wentz debacle, because he was kind of the prize that came from Carson Wentz's trade out. So I think the cornerback market has jumped. It's probably going to jump significantly more. Jalen Ramsey has certainly reset that. The secondary market as a whole is about to just get ridiculous. Jamal Adams and Minkah Fitzpatrick are about to blow up the safety market. So it's a good time to be a high-profile defensive back in the league right now. Cleveland does have at least one big contract to make this offseason, and I do think it's his. It's not going to be Jalen Ramsey-esque. It's going to be second tier, so you're looking between 16 to 18 million per year, in my opinion, if you value him as your shutdown corner for the next 4 to 5 seasons. But
my only question about him, Mike, is the only reason I would wait 1 year on him is it's like his availability is somewhat questionable, right? I almost want him to come out and see him play 13, 14 games next year and prove to me that before I really pay him the big money, because he's been, he had a lot of concussions his rookie year and he's been dinged here and there. It was better last year, but he's still, he only plays, 12 games, 10 to 12 games a year, right? And if you're going to give him that kind of money, you want to see him play 14 at least, I think.
Yeah, I would imagine you feel the same about Wyatt Teller, though, right? Was that just a 1 year, anomaly kind of a year? But I'd feel a lot more comfortable about extending the offensive line than I would a cornerback right now, knowing what you're going to have in Baker Mayfield locked up. So it's questionable all across the board. It's interesting to see what the new GM and the new front office is, how they're going to react to a little bit of winning, because you can be reckless with your cash, once the they're not all in like Kansas City, I wouldn't imagine. We're not going to see 4 extensions this offseason, but I bet we see 2.
Okay, interesting. Very good. You're listening to All Eyes on Cleveland with Michael Ginnitti, founder and managing editor at Spotrac. Just a couple more minutes, Michael, and I'll let you go here, okay? We talked about the danger of the cap situation and everything. The Browns really need to get better on the defensive side of the ball. And so I've been kind of doing these breakdown shows on each position on where they can get better. I identified a couple places. Obviously, they need help at corner because you don't know what you're going to get from Greedy Williams, etc. there. But I also think that their safety room was really, really terrible last year. Carl Joseph and Sendejo and Sheldrick Redwine played like 2,000 snaps, and they're like the 3 of the worst graded safeties in the league coverage-wise. I mean, it was just not good. And I'd like to see them get aggressive there for one reason, because you don't know really what. Obviously, you'd like to pencil in Grant Delpit as a starter with Ronnie Harrison, who was a nice move, right? So they have those 2 guys. But I know that their DC, Joe Woods, wants to play with 3 safeties a lot of the time. So, that's the whole way the NFL is kind of trending. So I would like to see them go after like a high-end safety. I know they're going to get linked to Anthony Harris, but he kind of took a step back last year. I really like the Marcus Mays of the world, the John Johnson III. I think they should go after potentially, but is that within their spending reasonable?
Look, if the goal is to rebuild the secondary a little bit, and that includes maybe extending Denzel Ward, then that's what they're going to be all in on this year. I think they're going to identify it. Staggering is so important right now in this current NFL. It's not about let's get everybody done right now so we can all have the core together. You've got to be able to stagger these big free agent contracts or these big extensions internally, so that you don't have a situation where in 2023 we have 80 million of dead cap to try to get out of this current situation. So yeah. I do think that there is a world where some of these good teams that I've mentioned already, the Rams being one of them, are going to have to give up on a couple of pieces because of the moves they've just made. Look, they've got dead cap for Brandon Cooks and Todd Gurley still this year, not to mention Jared Goff. So I think there's a world where John Johnson and Troy Hill, two starting defensive backs on the Rams last year, walk. And if that's the case, that's where you overpay. I agree with them not overpaying for J.J. Watt, because they can go find an edge rusher either in the middle of that draft, or there's 9 or 10 really strong names about to hit the open market, really strong names.
Yes.
A little bit older, but still worth your time with Garrett on the other side. So, yes, I think, the Saints may have to lose a defensive back this offseason in Marcus Williams. I think the Rams may lose 2. Patrick Peterson is certainly going to walk out of Arizona now that J.J. Watt has signed. What happens with Justin Simmons? If he's double tagged in Denver, is he going to try to force his way out of there? There are so many options on teams that aren't ready to contend as much as Cleveland is. And I think they're going to be right there to pounce when somebody comes calling.
That's awesome. That's what I love to hear. I also, looked at a way that they could get better is really at that nickel corner. So they paid $3.5 million to Kevin Johnson last year, who wasn't very good. Again, another first-round pick that they took out coming off a rookie deal, right? It's kind of maybe a theme there. Maybe we might be seeing with our front office, but him and Carl Joseph, both former first-round picks that didn't really pan out. But Kevin Johnson, they paid him $3.5 million. Now, the market for a nickel corner at the most probably is going to get to maybe 6 or 7. I think for probably the best guys you get at that position in the league a year. So if you're looking at like the Brian Pools, the Mike Hilton and Troy Hill you mentioned already of the world, that's a place that they can spend a couple $1 million and really upgrade the defense, I think.
Yeah,
Do you agree with
Bears
that?
the Bears have been doing this now for the past couple of seasons, sort of replacing that piece, because you can do it every year. You can do it on 1 to 2 year deals.
Yeah.
And if you're reaching at $6 million, it's probably still worth your time if you have the space to burn to get one of those top guys out there. I love the Troy Hill situation, now that I've said it out loud, to be honest with you, especially if you can combo pack that with Johnson, who I think is ridiculously underrated. There's a couple of guys coming out of Cincinnati that may not be signed back as well, who I do think have some game left in them coming off rookie deals. That's right in Cleveland's wheelhouse. So I think there's going to be options. And this is the thing I've noticed with this free agent class, maybe more than the last couple of years. There just seems to be so much depth in this free agent class at the big positions. Wide receivers, ton of depth. Running backs, ton of depth. Even quarterbacks, of course, ton of depth. That generally drives prices down. And in the financial year we're about to hit, I can't even imagine how much that means the finances are coming down. So how much is Troy Hill gonna cost if he's still sitting there April 1st? That very well might be the case. Again, Cleveland has the assets to pounce, so I think it's a good spot.
Yeah. Job one, I think, has to be for them. And I think what everybody, at least what I took away, and most people should have taken away from the Super Bowl, is if you really want to contend and you really want to be able to beat the Josh Allens and Patrick Mahomes, you got to be able to get home with 4 guys, right? Yeah. So pass rusher is job one for the Browns, right? Opposite Myles Garrett. And I think they addressed that probably maybe in the draft and in free agency. That maybe not a top end guy in free agency, but I think if you get a long-term solution in the draft and then another a piece in free agency, I think that makes a lot of sense. But Mike, my last question for you, I guess, would be, how do you handle the Odell Beckham Jr. situation, in your opinion? he's got that guaranteed money that kicked in due to the injury, right?
Yeah.
So you're not saving a ton by trading him. But at the same time, I think that, and you tell me what you think, Mike, but the impact he had on Baker Mayfield is real, in my opinion. Like, his effect on his game is real. Like, the front office wants us to believe after the season, it was that the offense came along so much more after he was gone that if he would have been there, he would have been shining just as brightly. But the numbers are pretty stark with and without him, and how much more comfortable Baker looked without him. And it's a real thing, I think. I mean, I get uncomfortable if he doesn't get a couple touches, right? In like 2 series, if he doesn't get the ball, I'm getting a little squirmy. So I think it's a real thing. So it makes me want to listen to trade offers, but not quite give up. I can't decide. What do you think, Mike?
I'd put him on the block and then listen for sure, because look, that guarantee that kicked in, that's the only guarantee left on his contract. So you're talking about a player, right, somewhat maybe 1 year past his prime in terms of his injuries on a 1 year, $13 million contract. There are a lot of teams, I think, that would consider that for, a mid-round pick, which Cleveland would probably like to get. But I agree with you. He's probably the still the savviest veteran wide receiver on that roster, with a close second to Jarvis Landry. That, to me, it's the question that I can't answer because I'm not in that locker room. Is Rashard Higgins ready to take a step forward? Is he ready to be a real WR2? And if there's more left to uncapture from him, if he can be more of a Curtis Samuel type player, then maybe there is room in that locker room to get rid of Odell Beckham Jr. for some kind of mid-round pick. Otherwise, what's better than having an extra wide receiver in the room on a 1 year basically guaranteed contract that you can get out of next year fairly easily? I just don't see the need to rush it. It's not a necessity to trade him. If somebody wants to blow you away with 2 picks, a third and a fourth, or a second and a third, you're doing it, of course. But he's basically a rental piece at this point, and I think that makes sense to keep.
I lied to you. I have one last question. I'm sorry.
Sure.
It just came to me. Mary Kay Cabot today, after the J.J. Watt news, and she was kind of all over that story, as she always is with everything in Cleveland, but she came out today with a piece saying that they have interest in Levante David and Brashad Perriman. Now, Brashad Perriman makes a ton of sense. He was here before, has a connection with Baker, and the Browns lack speed major in that room, right? And that seems like a value guy you could add with that speed. That makes a lot of sense. Levante David, though, inside linebacker, makes some sense, but once again, you point to that front office. They don't value linebacker very much in that front office. So I guess I question if they would spend the kind of money that it would take to bring Levante David in here.
Yeah, I mean, he probably maxes out at $14 million. So if you're talking about that, I think I'd just rather put that into a second-tier edge rusher, a guy who can get to the quarterback versus a guy who's going to be more in coverage and be horizontal. Look, those guys are crazy valuable. So if he thinks there's a leadership problem on that defense right now, and especially in the center of the defense, then Levante David doesn't have a price tag. He's invaluable to that franchise. So, but can you find that guy late in the first round? Maybe. Maybe that's where a lot of these, that's where the Bills have found it. The Jets certainly did it in free agency with C.J. Mosley. So we're finding them in different. Certainly, Pittsburgh has done it year after year, and the Ravens as well. So it's David's a hell of a player. If he wants to be, top out and join Cleveland to become the leader of that defense, I'm not going to blame Andrew Berry for overspending for him. Rashard Perriman, I have fitting in like 7 different franchises right now. But I could see him in San Francisco. I could see him on the New York Giants to replace Golden Tate as a speedster. There are so many teams that have good hands guys, but not enough speed. So I think maybe his price tag might increase just a little bit because of the demand out there. But again, yes, that's a phenomenal, versatile replacement for whatever you need in your wide receiver room. I could see them both happening, but I just don't know if David gets out of Tampa Bay. He seems too important to that defense.
Yeah. Curtis Samuel, I think. I mean, to me, teams would be crazy. I wanted the Browns, if they let OBJ go, I would want the Browns to go after him. But I'm just thinking, and I was reading the article that you did where you assigned all the players to the teams, and I was kind of looking at some of the figures. If he's going to command $12 million a year, that's, they can't do that, right? But, if he's going to get 8, then, he's an absolute steal, I think. All the things that you can do with that guy in an offense. How much is the TV money going to go up, Mike? Like more than they thought, right?
Oh, yeah, more than double. It sounds like Monday Night Football just doubled, and CBS and Fox are all back in the fold. Amazon's going to be in. Maybe Paramount Plus is going to be in. That's not even without the international stuff. It sounds like over $14 billion for this new contract, which is just insane. So, like I said, there's money in the banana stand, and the salary cap needs to show that this year.
Yeah. See if they can get that to reflect this year. Because, as you said before, it causes a big problem if it's all next year, right?
Yeah, that's the other thing. You can't go from 180 to 220. We saw that in the NBA. It was a nightmare. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mike, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. You're a gentleman, a scholar. I appreciate everything. And we appreciate you coming on All Eyes on Cleveland. You're fantastic. And maybe we can do it again sometime.
My pleasure, Brad. Thank you.
All right. That was the one and only Mike Ginnitti of Spotrac joining us for a interview, breaking down everything 2021 salary cap here on All Eyes on Cleveland. Thanks for listening tonight. Some news today. It does look like the NFL is going to add a 17th game to the schedule. So 18 weeks, 17 games, no additional bye week, as it initially looked like there was going to be an added on bye week. But now it sounds like 17 games in 18 weeks. They're just going to move the season back with just one more week. So the Super Bowl would be 1 week later in Los Angeles next year. The way that game is going to be determined, from best that I can tell, is that they're going to the 2019 schedule, and whoever you played in your opposite conference and lines up with your ranking. So, for instance, the Browns, the AFC North, played the NFC West in 2019, and the third place team, which where the Browns finished in last year, standings, was the Arizona Cardinals. So, as of right now, I would, and it does sound like from what I could read today and determine, it will be 2021 will be the home game for the AFC. 2022 will be home game for the NFC. So it looks like an additional home game added versus the Arizona Cardinals, who just acquired one J.J. Watt today. So that's what we can take away from the 17th game to the schedule. So you have that list. Everybody has that list of the Browns' opponents going forward. I would pencil in Arizona Cardinals at home for that what would be 9th home game, right? So that'll be interesting, and that's to keep things fair, so that one season the AFC has 9 home games, the next season the NFC has 9 home games, and vice versa, to keep things on a level playing field there. Also rumored in the same kind of news, wild card weekend, Monday Night Football. They're saying that one of the wild card games on wild card weekend could be pushed to Monday Night Football. So that's the news today breaking. Also, the J.J. Watt deal we talked about with Mike. Just quick thoughts on J.J. Watt deal. I'm not really hurt by it. That's a lot of money, $31 million, 2 years, 23 guaranteed. That's a lot of money to pay for a guy that's past his prime, in my opinion. As I said in the interview, to Mike, I feel like the Browns' job one is to find that pass rusher. So I would like to see them address that at 26 and in free agency. You've got to add depth there as well. If you can't get to the quarterback with 4, we learned it from the Super Bowl, then you aren't going to be able to win in the playoffs, and you aren't going to be able to beat teams with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson that can scramble around like that. So the Browns have to add those guys. That's job one, and then add to the secondary. And we talked about that with Mike as well, where one place they could get better was for cheap is the nickel position with a Mike Hilton or a Troy Hill, etc., and also safety and corner. They really need to get better at all those places, and of course linebacker as well, which I think they'll address in the draft more likely than a Levante David, like was in Mary Kay's article today. I don't think that they will go out and spend that kind of money on a Levante David. I would be shocked. It would be great, but I just don't think they value that position enough to do that. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe that's incorrect. But there's kind of the news, though. 17 games. Sounds like it'll be the Cardinals at home next year. So that's kind of pencil that in as your game, and maybe a Monday night football game on Wild Card Weekend. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Michael Ginnitti of Spotrac. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m., we will be back with Greg Tomset. He is a capologist for Cover One. We're going to get even further into the Browns free agency here on your free agency primer week at All Eyes on Cleveland, covering everything salary cap, everything you need to know. For Mikey on the ones and twos, we hope you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button on your way out. Thanks for listening. This has been All Eyes on Cleveland. My name is Brad Ward. We are out.